Hey, coming up on this episode of Small Town Charm, weird stuff around elections, games people play, lies that are told, sowing seeds of doubt. What can we do about it so that we don't keep encountering it in the future? All of that and a lot more on Small Town Charm. Stay tuned. All right, welcome into another episode of Small Town Charm. My name's Daniel. We got Mike. We got Chris. Thank you for watching. Again, if you're watching this or listening to this, whatever platform you're on, please do us a favor, especially if you like the show, subscribe to it. And then on the podcast platforms, if you could leave us an honest review, like I said, especially if you like the show, leave us that review, leave us a rating. Those are two separate things. Even if you don't want to type out a review, just hit, 5 stars. I'd take that. 4. I'll put up a 4. That's great. But do us that favor, and we'll love you forever. All right. So as we're recording this, we are in the middle of early election season still, and we've already had an episode about kind of the current election.
Right.
And so I don't obviously want to rehash that. There hasn't been much change, at least not anything big time that we need to talk about in the present election, but I do think it's important to for a lot of people to hear maybe a little of the backstory of previous elections in this town. And I think number one, because we're gonna hear maybe some similarities to things that are happening now.
Yep.
We'll probably draw our conclusions and present them, but people can also draw their own conclusions. And number two, I think they're going to hear some familiar names. Or maybe relatives of familiar names, or neighbors of familiar names, or something like that. That might give you a little more context for what's going on now. And I don't want to be cliche about the whole thing about being doomed to repeat it if you don't learn from it. That whole thing, but it is important, right? And so I don't know exactly where to start. I think we probably should just talk about. You mentioned it in the last episode, the whole fake account being set up.
Yeah.
That whole thing. It's funny because a lot of times what I've at least drawn the comparison or the link between is the more kind of not sinister is not the right word because I don't want to call anyone evil. That's not fair. But the more dirty you're willing to play, typically you're not that smart also.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It just seems like if you're gonna play dirty, I don't know. If I was gonna play dirty, I'd try to be a little smarter about it. But it seems like time after time in this town, the people who are willing to kind of get down in the dirt are the ones who aren't very smart about it, but also have this weird arrogance about their entitlement to be the way they are
Or their intelligence level.
Yeah, it's there's the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? That thing they talk about where it's the less intelligent you are, the more confident you are in your own intelligence.
Yeah.
True. And that definitely, I've seen a lot of that in this town. But I think, so we had an election 2 years ago, which would have been after the charter change. And then prior to that, was it about 2 years before that, or was it a year before that?
2018.
Mm-hmm. So 2 years before that.
Yeah.
And I think 2018 is probably the best context we all have for any kind of weirdness.
And then we all lived through it too, so I feel comfortable talking about it. I'm sure there was crap happening beforehand. I've heard stories that I'm not going to repeat because it's pointless.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2018 is definitely the first time that I got the taste of politics in Nolensville. And it's like you said, it's the same exact thing, same exact people, same exact games. 2018 was famous for the write-in, right? And
Russell Gill, yep.
I'm not sure. We grew so much in population. There's people that don't know what happened. Brian Snyder was an alderman there. He was a very popular alderman at the time. He was the social media giant of Nolensville. Hold on, let me get the giggles out. All right. So he was
DJ Brian Snyder.
DJ, yeah. he told people that he actually pulled papers and he wanted to contend Jimmy Alexander for mayor. Russell Gill also wanted to contend for mayor. When he talked to Brian Snyder, he figured Brian Snyder's the Mr. Popular in town. They agreed at that point. They agreed on like the.
It was a gentleman's agreement.
Right.
It was like, hey, you're an alderman.
They were running
He's a sitting mayor. You already are in power, so I'll like give you the respect of letting you run.
And there was also the aspect of like they agreed they would go. Their platforms were pretty similar, or at least in first pitch type of thing. And then Brian Snyder pulled out last minute to where Jimmy Alexander was going to be uncontested.
So the read on that might be, again, this is me. I'm the least informed of the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
So the read on that might be like, if you're a third candidate looking at that situation before Snyder pulls out, you're like, well, I've got a sitting mayor running and an alderman running. Like, I'm not gonna I'm just not gonna compete with that. I can't compete with that. So I won't even try to run.
Right.
And so the whole pulling out last minute kind of thing kind of feels like playing a game to like keep anybody else from running. Would that be some people might perceive it that way? Is that what you're kind of getting at? Tell me what you're getting at. That's not it.
I think that majority of people that ended up being pissed off about it thought of it that way, as like keeping any contention away from the seat and then pull out last minute. And then at that point, like he excused it, which is, I mean, rightly so. He actually did the right thing there. He pulled out of the race because they opened up the car wash. So he's like, well, if I'm going to be managing the car wash, like I don't want to serve in office, even though his business partner, Jason Patrick, had absolutely no issue with that. But
and we'll talk about that in another episode, I think.
Yeah.
The car wash and all that kind of real estate deals in this town.
Oh, I like that. But yeah, so that was the first one that I'm familiar with, was like the weird pulling the rug from under somebody's feet. And then obviously I mentioned it in the previous episode, the Derek Adams fake account. That was the start of talking point elections in town. At least from like my history in town. There was a lot of like sound bites, right? So it doesn't matter what the facts are. If you say it enough times, enough people will believe it to where those people can cast doubt, right? So it's like planting seeds. And then Better Nolensville. I mean, that was the best example of like planting reasonable doubt in people's minds, right? So we need 2 questions on the ballot, which would completely I would have pulled out. I would have completely dropped Better Nolensville if we needed 2 questions.
The 2 questions would have been, someone presented the idea that there need to be 2 questions on the ballot.
It wasn't someone; it was the town of Nolensville.
Oh yeah, saying there needs to be one question that says, do you want to get rid of the current charter, and then another question to adopt the new one, as opposed to just saying, do you want to replace it with a new one?
Right. Which would have presented the opportunity to end up without a charter and be disorganized, just completely.
Yeah, what would you? Yeah, what is that? Yeah, exactly. Because what would happen?
That push was to scare everyone away from signing the petition, because if you need, there is a possibility where we completely lose the town. And then when that got proven wrong, that's when you mentioned Bob Notestein on that Zoom call with the election commission. They flat out just said no. They only need 1 question. We checked and go away type of thing. Then the impact fee thing started. That was I almost lost my mind during the I was so upset with you guys for engaging in this conversation. I held true to this very day, where I ended the last episode looking at the camera and mentioning those fees, because every time somebody brought up the possibility of losing the impact fees, all of the collective Better Nolensville would go in and argue that. Whereas I was always like, no, it says everything transfers over. End of discussion. Why are we talking about this? And then I knew that the only reason we're talking about this was the same reason why Mary Cassatt was formed and bled into the 401. Or the 2-question issue came up, is to cast doubt. If you say it enough times, you'll get enough people to worry about it.
Right.
And it creates this aurora of this is scary. This is the unknown. I don't want to put all my weight behind this because it might hurt. And then the same exact thing is happening now, where it's Lisa's obviously running against Jessica and Kate, and the big thing now is like you have to discredit Lisa, and you have to. The only way to do that is to go after the police department, and it's always the same games. It's always the same exact people. Like Tommy Duggar served since the very first day of Nolensville, like 1997 or 6. Nolensville was formed with Tommy Duggar on the board of.
He was part of incorporating the town.
And now he's pulling body cam videos of police officers pulling over the person that beat him in the last election. Like, that is nuts.
It cracks me up, by the way. Let's talk about that just for a moment. It cracks me up.
I like that.
It's like cracking open a cold one. It cracks me up that the people who are trying to point out this whole body cam footage thing and this speeding ticket being dismissed, if you believe the whole narrative about that being wrong, then you have to also blame the chief of the police department.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious to me to watch people who are pushing that to try to weave some story or some version of it where Lisa did something wrong, but not the police, because they don't want to speak ill of the police. It's like, you chose this story. You picked this story, and now it's like, well, also they put Wendy in there for getting a failure to stop ticket. And it's like, oh, no. We don't blame the police. Don't blame Wendy. We want just her. We wanted to tell the story, and it happened this certain way. Don't talk about the other stuff. Like, leave that out. It's like, but if you believe the story, you have to believe all of the story. You can't just leave parts out.
You cannot cherry pick. And last time I checked, the police are the ones in charge of writing tickets. The police are in charge of
voiding tickets, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah, and they're the ones in charge of holding the law. Like,
and so like,
if they don't think that the law is broken, then the law hasn't been broken.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other debate to be had about it.
But it's such an example of small town, right? So like, somebody gets a ticket, like, she was going over the speed limit. You get a ticket, and then the police chief's like, "Hey, we live in a small town. Like, we're friends, or like we work together. Like, you're on a board that I serve, basically. Like, don't worry about it. Like, you've been embarrassed enough. You got pulled over with your daughter. You got embarrassed enough. I'm gonna rip this up. Like, just And then she feels guilty enough to like go back and say, you know what? Like, I don't want this to be an issue later. I'm gonna go pay it. I'm gonna go do driving school. So like. And then the maximum penalty for that, for Lisa, is a censure, right? The maximum penalty for the police department is an embarrassing investigation that's happening right now.
Right.
All to like paint Lisa in this negative light.
Like an employment issue, they said, I think, in the last meeting. Like someone could lose their job, theoretically.
Sure.
Could.
Right.
Yeah. That won't happen, I don't think. But like,
no, the statute of limitations, I think, up on that too.
Yeah.
I think it's like a year. And then the one thing that's very worth mentioning is that like this Freedom of Information Act was pulled last year.
Right.
So like Tommy Duggar pulled this data out of town hall, knowing that it exists, and he sat on it till 2 weeks before election day.
Right.
Like, this is the game that these people have been playing for such a long time.
It's like, again, if you're gonna be dirty, be smarter. This is insane. You're not. This is not allegedly. You are being dumb if you play it this way. There are too many smart people in this town. That's the thing that frustrates me. Is like, I don't think there are a bunch of dumb people in this town. I really don't. That's like the thing that we talked in the previous episode about what got us all involved. But the thing that I didn't talk about was the fact that what really gets me upset is that I've met so many people in this town that are insanely intelligent, plugged in, have common sense, are well educated, and the fact that the people in leadership sometimes treat everyone like they're idiots, that's actually what upsets me more than anything.
I think to look historically at this, I think the reason that some of these bozos got away with it, and that's a really nice word to use for them.
Sure.
But I think the reason that this existed for so long and was the precipice for so much of the change that's happened over the last few years is because you had a bunch of people who held their positions of power for a very long time in a town with a lot of people who weren't paying attention.
Not stupid,
And
just
not-
weren't paying attention.
Just- only that, but
not stupid. Yes,
the positions kept getting recycled. So
Correct.
like Bet Lathers left to go to serve at the county level.
Correct.
Like Jimmy stepped in. Then Tommy was so Jason Patrick, Brian Snyder, both were not elected first time.
correct. They were appointed.
They were appointed. I know that was like the cycle. There was like
Yeah.
rinse and repeat, and like there was like a year that Tommy Duggar actually lost his seat, and then Beth left. Jimmy got into the mayor's seat. Tommy got appointed. Like that was like a weird.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna affect
Honestly,
this, but-
until Derek ran, there hadn't been a new face
Yeah.
really in
or like
Nolensville
a
elections.
competitive election.
Correct. Like it was just like the same people coming in and out. It was like a revolving door of either I'm the mayor this year and you're an alderman, or
Yeah,
I'm
take turns.
I mean, it's just we passed the baton, and I mean, going back to something I said in a previous episode, it's like there's a reason I showed up at the mayor's re-election party, and the entire board was there.
Right.
Nate, like that would never happen today.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
our board is very politically divided, but in a healthy way.
Right. It's not a bad thing to have sides.
No,
honestly.
no. Like sides are how you make progress,
Right.
because you have
You have
both
to
people
compromise.
fighting
Right.
for
If there's
their,
no
their
competing,
side.
if
Yeah.
there's no competing idea,
Correct.
it's kind of like Darwinian. There is no
Yes.
best idea wins because there is no other idea.
Correct.
And I think it's worth mentioning too that like just from my side of this, like obviously the division on the BOC has been pretty prevalent for the last 2 years, right? Like that's been like there were ethic violations beforehand. There were votes that were 3-2, 2-3. Like it's been contention or it's been combative through the 2 years, but I stayed out of it. Like as an insider, I kind of took a step back. I stopped blogging. I didn't post that much. I let them have it. Like it was healthy, like you said.
Yeah.
It was iron sharpens iron type of thing, and it's like majority rules. Like I have an opinion. I know what should be done, or I know what I would have done, but I'm going to let the process do whatever it needs to do. I came back because the same exact people that completely screwed the whole system up came back.
Yeah.
Like I looked at FOIA requests, and I looked at lawsuits, and I looked at election connections, and I'm like, there's Tommy, there's Jason, they're back. Like this is the people that like we literally fought during a pandemic.
Yeah.
The whole time, and we weren't fighting to get them out of office. We were literally fighting them. They were telling people that we were lying to them. They were trying to organize a takeover of the government. Like these people fought us the whole entire way, and now they're back with the same exact crap they've been doing.
I'm going to say something that's really harsh,
Oh, you have to slap here so we can edit it.
Clap. Yeah.
but it needs to be said. There is a cancer that exists in Nolensville.
100%.
And I think to some of us in not only involved in Better Nolensville, but I think even to the people who voted for the change to happen, they thought that they were voting that change to go through, and that it was like killing this cancer, right? Like it was killing this thing that was holding our town back from being a prosperous, forward-thinking. Growth or no growth is irrelevant. Just like a town that is actually operated in a like healthy, transparent way. And it's very clear that like, you know what, like the first round of chemo worked, but like we didn't get it all.
Yeah.
Because it's very obvious that all these same players who have been involved for years and years and years and have done some really awful things behind the scenes that a lot of people don't know about that we'll get into later.
Yeah.
Are still behind a lot of this stuff. And I mean, I just have to say it, like, because it's out there and it's public record. If you just go look for the information, if you go look at two of the candidates in this elections, if you go look at their public like financial documents,
The financial report.
these people we're talking about, like these absolutely horrid people that have been involved for government for years, have given money to these people.
Yeah.
And have
That are
signs,
running.
Have signs.
Have
in
signs in
their
And
their
yard.
have
yards,
signs
yeah.
in their yards. Like we're not making this up. This isn't like a pro one candidate kind of thing. It's like, no, like we are very anti two candidates for a specific reason. It's because they're just mouthpieces for what has been in Nolensville for
That's a
years.
very good way to put it.
I think I said this in our Lost episode, so I don't think I'm repeating anything, but like there's that we don't owe it to all three candidates to be fair when two of them are being supported by a certain system of people. Like, we don't owe it to them. Like, there's no like, there's I said there was the newsroom show, Jeff Daniels,
right.
The bias towards fairness, the idea of saying, Republicans say the sky is blue and Democrats say the sky is red. And the headline, if you're trying to be fair to everybody, is
Right.
politicians can't agree on what color the sky is. It's like, no, the headline can be Democrats lie and say the sky is red. Like, somebody can be wrong,
Right?
And it's not being unfair. And I do want to circle back really quick to everything you're saying with the impact fee thing. I posted one time as one comment somewhere about the fact that here we are at that time a year later. Impact fees are still here.
Yep.
Ding, ding, ding. Like, it's amazing.
I posted the exact dollar amount today on the first year anniversary of the charter change.
Yeah.
I did this. I posted the exact dollar amount of impact fees collected since.
And I got dragged so hard. People
Yep.
saying, hey, can't you? And it was all people who opposed the charter change
Right.
saying, can't you just let it go? Why would you do this? Like, you don't really, like, don't like dance on the grave or whatever it was. Like, don't be so negative. And my reply was, like, this is what's called a consequence.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get to like lie to people or be uninformed and still run your mouth, and then after it turns out you were wrong, just nothing happens.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So the next time this comes up, you can just do the same. You can lie again. You can just do it because nothing happens when you're wrong.
But also, it's not that like dancing on graves and like I do believe in sportsmanship. Like, you win, you shake hands and you move on. I understand that, but the fact that we were entitled to the same information, the fact that like they used the power of the government to fight us on that, they never redacted anything they did, and like they did cause a ton of turmoil with like it wasn't information driven, it was an agenda driven. They didn't want to lose control of their government. They
Correct.
knew what they were doing. Like, they knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
We've all read the same exact language. They're telling people that like there's like they got M-Test involved
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
whole thing to like get some mouthpiece M-Test intern to say like, oh, you might lose it. It's like a lawyer just told you that there's a possibility. Like, hooray! Every lawyer tells you there's a possibility.
What's hilarious now too is MTAS can't speak about certain things revolving Nolensville because of the position that they took, the incorrect position they took.
Right.
They literally shot
2
themselves
years
in the
ago.
foot permanently.
Like, MTAS is like our legal body, right? Like, we go to them to like get legal advice from. They're
For
like
free.
our advisor.
For free, yeah.
Sure, but it's like, hey, like, we need some help with this legal issue. Can you give us some advice?
They can't do it.
They
anymore.
can't do it on
Yeah.
certain issues because of how they advised us improperly before or incorrectly.
So yeah, I think that's a good point to put on record. From now on, if anyone wants to cite MTAS,
Yeah.
the whole time we were all saying they're wrong. You can read language and see
Yeah.
how they're wrong. And some genius who outsmarted themselves basically said, let's find a way to make it where the other side can be right.
Right.
And
But they weren't right. So like that's my big take, or my
could
big
say
point.
they're right.
No, it was like they were trying to just cast doubt. It wasn't about
Yeah.
like we're going to lose them. It's we might lose them.
Yeah.
Like, there is a possibility we lose them. Like, you're casting doubt. It's the same thing like in a trial of law. All you need is doubt.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they were trying to do. Just cast enough doubt to discredit the whole movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's just it's so frustrating, and I'll just point one more thing out, and then maybe we can move on or we can be done with this topic. But it wasn't just it's the doubt thing, right? And so anytime I reply on Facebook, especially when we were in this campaign season of the Better Nolensville, for Nolensville charter change thing, what I always reminded myself was that I always would note like who was asking the question and say, is there a point to ask the question because they don't know the answer, or are they asking the question to raise the doubt? And either way, I think I owed them an answer or something, because I wasn't answering that person. I wasn't trying to win that person over. I was answering every other person who saw that thing.
Yeah.
And then the easiest tell of that was there were a couple of people who insisted on every time a post was made about this movement, they would ask the same question. And it was a question that had, copy and paste, same question. And we would answer it in one place. And then days later, they would ask the same question somewhere else.
Yep.
And it's like, you're not asking this because you want to know the answer.
Right.
You're asking this to influence people to doubt something.
Right.
Right.
And so I got in the practice of just literally linking to the other answer where you did the same thing.
Right.
Again, if you're going to do this stuff, you got to be smarter because that's stupid. Like, I know how to copy and paste as well as you do.
Right.
And it makes you look bad when you do that stuff, not me.
Right.
It gives you more credibility once you point out, like once you point it out and it becomes very obvious, like this person has asked this 4 times in last week. We've answered the same way. Like they're doing once you make it that obvious, it actually helps you.
Right.
So like I don't hate it.
Yep.
Exactly. So I don't want to give our whole playbook to other people, but like find a new method. Maybe that's the right way to put it.
Control C.
Yeah, I know.
How
Right?
about just try honesty? Be a decent freaking human being.
Well, that's what every.
That's my secret. Like I'm just decent.
Yeah. Every kid lies sometimes, right?
Well, sure.
And I always teach my kid. I say, look, being honest is really easy because you can just literally remember what the truth is, like whatever happened, whatever it is, and just describe that.
Yeah.
It's actually really hard to be a liar, to lie. And I say, look, you can actually be lazy. I never want you to be lazy except for when you're talking about the truth versus what, I said, you can be lazy. It's easy. It's so easy to tell the truth. And that's what just drives me crazy is that not only are people in this town, some people in this town, very few, but some who think they're very influential, they're not being honest, but they're also being lazy and being dishonest. It's that combination of laziness and dishonesty that like really drives me crazy.
Yep.
It's like, again, I get offended on behalf of the people that I've met in this town that are so smart and like, again, I've maybe only met a few stupid people in this town, and I've met a lot of people. Most people in this town are very intelligent and can see through most of this stuff. And it's just like they're just not willing to emotionally engage in the defense of their own intelligence.
Right.
So when they're treated as stupid people, some people don't think you don't recognize who randomly rears their head when election season comes around. They swore off Facebook. They're not coming back. Oh, but randomly they're back.
Right.
Oh, and
Parler just doesn't hit like Facebook.
I guess not, right? I guess not. But I think we can end it here.
Yeah.
That was a good discussion. Thank you for watching Small Town Charm. Next episode.
It's gonna be a banger.
I hope we don't run out of camera. I think this one will be okay. Next episode, we are going to do our very first on location Small Town Charm episode. It is going to be from a place. We'll tell you what it is when we're there, but it is in a place that is so scary, so terrifying that some refuse to believe it even exists.
No, most people don't know it exists.
They don't know it
There's
exists.
probably like 10 people in town that know that this place
It's a very rare.
And it's so scary. Nobody ever wants it to exist.
It's-
And the
Exactly.
only way this is happening is because we promised not to disclose where this place is located.
Yeah.
But we will tell you what it is, just
Yeah.
not where it is. But I think it's very appropriate that we're coming up on the Halloween season. When that episode airs, it might be a little after Halloween, but we'll all be very spooked out by what we encounter. I guarantee you, because we've been told that we will encounter some very spooky stuff at this place.
Yep.
So you'll have to tune in next time to Small Town Charm. Thanks for watching.